today for our custom battery packs development timeline and expectations webinar. My name is Ed McMahon, and I'm the CEO of Epic Engineered Technologies. As many of you know, Epic has been designing and manufacturing industry-leading battery packs and other products for over 60 years, and for all different types of industries, such as medical, military, portable devices, and many others. The purpose of this webinar today is to help educate engineers and our customers on the process of developing and designing a battery pack from concept to production. Here at Epic, we work on over 100 new designs a year, and we find that many times there's not enough time in a project plan allocated to the battery pack design and development, and this causes for the entire product launch to be delayed. So whether you work with Epic or another battery company, the process, the regulatory requirements, and the timeline that we'll go over here today will be the same. Our presenter today is Anton Beck. Anton is Epic's battery pack product manager, who has overseen and managed many of these projects from start to finish. He works directly with customers to develop the scope of the project, and then he works and manages all the folks in our Battery Tech Development Center in Denver, Colorado, to create product solutions. Before I let Anton get started, what you'll see in the webinar is down at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, there's a place to put questions. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and just enter them there. And at the very end, Anton will pick a few questions to answer, and then the rest of the questions, if we don't get to them, Anton will be happy to answer them directly to you via email, and then we'll publish them on the website. And lastly, by the end of the day today, this webinar will also be published on our website along with all of the other webinars that we give that are similar to this and helping provide technical resources to our customers. So that being said, I'll turn it over to Anton so we can start the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. The objective today is to familiarize the engineers and the customers on the expectations to develop battery packs. As Ed said, many times the project launch is scheduled to later find that there's regulatory involved or whatever type of certification approvals that affect the battery in moving forward. So we put together some information to define what we know and what we've experienced in the development process. The first step is to obtain any documentation possible in the project. That would be data, that would be any environmental documentation, the actual end application of the device, what environmental temperatures it may see, and we've created a project questionnaire for our battery to cover most of the basics on the voltage, capacity, the charging rates, etc. That's to put all the information on one place so that we can later have a discussion with the customer and the engineer and ask questions that we may see red flags on there for cycle lives or charge ratings or temperatures, etc. And actually make those the discussion points as we start to develop the scope of work. One of the biggest mistakes is leaving out any critical pieces about the development, about the costs, about the timelines. So that discussion point is very critical in the beginning. The second step is for our engineers to develop the scope of work. And by that we're talking about, as the question and answers go back and forth in the data that we have, we develop a proposal that will outline the timelines and the NREs, the developments of the prototypes and the regulatory requirements that may be involved, the development of the packs to get to the regulatory submissions, mechanical designs, whether it be plastic or steel, you know, what data we have on that or what participation Epic is involved in. We can manage both ways. If the customer has a design or if we need to create the design for them, we have some very good resources. Again, the mistake is the companies don't understand the resources to put everything together and meet the customer objectives. So the more information we discuss, the better we define our scope of work, the smoother the development goes. Part of that will include cell selection. Sometimes customers have a specific cell that they've already pre-tested and they want to target. Sometimes it's arbitrary, up to us, whatever fits the power requirements. You know, the mechanical limitations as far as what type of materials need to be applied, what space constraints there are, and this is all defined in our proposal as part of the scope of work that outlines the electrical design, the steps to get there, the approval processes, the detailed, again, design review, and anything that may be pertinent to the project, such as water ingress, what levels it needs to see, etc. Again, the more information we discuss up front, the more accurate our proposal is. It's never perfect out of the gate. It's always a development and a process to get to that point. Step 3 is refining the scope. After we've completed and submitted our proposal, we allow the customer and their engineering team to review it. It always requires a follow-up conversation. We get on another additional conference call to go over the specifics, to talk about the electronics that are selected, what may be a give and take as far as performance versus costs. You know, a lot of times when engineers are going into it, they don't understand the electronics and how they play a part in it, and they want everything on the battery until you see the details of it, and then there's a discussion about trimming some costs out of it, or some performance characteristics that aren't really required, and you could obtain better economics without. So that is the scope refinement process. As I said before, many times we go back and there's a second version of it, sometimes a third. It's to dial it in to that specific application to meet the expectations for the customer and price points and timelines. Another mistake is not working with the supplier to understand the cost pressures and targets. Again, we try to ferret that out early in the conversation, but many times that information is a process to obtain, and we understand that. Now with that out of the way and everything agreed upon, we're ready to start moving forward. And you know, typically this takes a financial commitment from the customer. We start with a purchase order to begin the steps to lay out the circuitry and spin a run on the PCBAs that may be involved. You know, we have to create the Gerber data, et cetera. So there are steps to get to this point, and the commitment might be for step 1 on the design is to get it to the prototype stage, to do the layout and the bill of materials, the Gerber data, all the documentation involved to get to the prototype step. Step 2, once we get past that, might be to move forward with other NREs, tooling, et cetera, that might be involved in enclosures. But during this step, all the procurement's done on the materials, the drawings are created, the initial test equipment, firmware and software is done, and as we're developing the prototypes, assembly and manufacturing instructions are done until we get that prototype in front of the customer. Now this could take, as we say on the bottom, 4 to 20 weeks, depending on the level of prototyping the customer requires, and the testing on it. Some of it, we may submit a prototype and it's pretty straightforward, form, fit, and function, and it performs. Some of it may have to go through extensive cycle testing and product testing, so the approval process varies greatly from project to project. You know, the exception of a complete proposal that identifies the scope of work and all the defined processes is something that is a little similar or simpler, like the packs you see here. Obviously, these are not smart batteries. There's not any electronics that needs to be developed. The development side on these is much easier. You know, they all have their individual characteristics to it, but the timeline around something like this is much faster. What we're discussing is basically lithium batteries and anything with smart technology. Once the prototypes are delivered, bench testing, as you can see, some of them are delivered as a soft pack. Some of them, the customer has to have the enclosure. You know, that can be done with SLA. It may be that the tools have to be created. The first article is molded. The actual battery needs to be enclosed for the customer to completely approve the prototype process. But there's all levels, different levels of approval. This is very important before we move any forward, is to get the prototypes approved, because at that point in time, electronics can be changed, dimensional sizing can be changed, and as you see at the bottom of the screen, at this point it's 90% done. There might be small tweaks that need to be done to the design or the electronics. With that all under the belt and everything approved, now the steps are actually to move to transportation certification or ULCE if it's required on the project. These can laterally be done because the design is confirmed, and you don't move to the regulatory until your design is locked down, because how you approve this through the Department of Transportation is how the final design needs to go forward. Nothing can change from that, otherwise the certification is no longer valid. So as you can see, this process on the UL side of it is up to 12 weeks, and we have to create the battery packs first to submit. So there's a timeline around building the next lot of batteries for the submission, you know, and that's typically, depending on the electronics, it could be from 6 weeks up to 16 weeks, depending on the components that are entailed in there. And that's just to build the battery packs for the submission and the testing. Like I said, laterally these can be done so we can produce the next lot to be done for UL submissions and DOT submissions. But typically the DOT is the next step, so that the battery packs can be moved around safely and through air via transportation. Otherwise, everything's managed on the ground. This slide just kind of gives you an overview of what the IATA and DOT are about. IATA is the International Air Transportation that the employees and the organization needs to be certified to, so that everybody understands the packaging requirements, labeling, classifications of the product, and that is mandatory for anybody that manages lithium. If someone is doing that without that, they're not doing it legally. At EPIC, we go through this on an annual basis. Both our divisions in Colorado and New Bedford, all our employees are IATA approved. The DOT is specific for that design. Any battery that's created requires this for safety certification for transportation. It's the 8-point destructive test. Again, it involves the 16-piece submission that will be gone through rigorous testing before it gets certification for transportation approval. After regulatory, we're ready to begin the production. These photos are just demonstrations of the test fixtures required at the prototype steps, and even the regulatory submissions. Those are small volume, and we can handle those on prototype testing equipment. But as we move into production, part of the development process is to create the test fixtures that will be efficient for production once we begin. As you can see, there's a couple examples on the benches there for the test fixtures for production. Now the production begins. As with EPIC, you have to have the correct equipment in place, and any reputable battery manufacturer or supplier should be able to do quick designs, prototyping, manufacture the complete battery pack in-house, I mean, with the exception of some subcontracting like plastics and what have you, and provide immediate technical support. And that's where we excel. When we begin to develop a project, it's not just develop it and provide the battery. We're there for technical resources. We work with the customers on any potential problems they see in the field. We do analysis on anything that comes back. It's ongoing. It's not just develop it and begin to supply the batteries. We're there for technical support through the longevity of the project. Again, just examples of what makes us or any facility capable. Investment. There's a shot of our tech center there, our assembly room in New Bedford. It takes investment on the equipment, the training for the employees, the backup test and programming. We run dual systems, one in our Colorado Tech Center and one in our New Bedford facility, so that we can troubleshoot at either end. Mostly our Colorado division is for resources on R&D or any analysis on any returns or any type of technical support. We also have the vacuum chamber for potting and encapsulation, bar coding system for lot traceability, which is pretty much standard for any battery packs, so that there's traceability on the lots as they're produced. Again, just examples of the equipment that we have in New Bedford, and this is to keep the manufacturing process consistent, being able to review everything that you're doing on a consistent level. We are UL approved on several projects we produce as well, so UL comes in and audits, but that's just an example of some of the equipment we have. The summary of this is basically the development and the scope of the work in the front end of this process before we provide our proposal is very important. And we spend a lot of time on the phone with customers, specifically the customer engineers, because they know the power requirements that they need. And we have some very technical engineers, electrical and mechanical engineers, that spend a lot of time getting information on the application so that we can dial in an economical and feasible solution as efficiently as possible. You should always leave the battery circuitry to the battery companies. Sometimes projects we work on, the customers have a design in mind. They've already worked on some prototypes, but what they don't realize is we specifically create the electronics for the battery packs, and our guys are very astute on that and know the components that go on these, how they perform, what the characteristics are, and know how to apply it in the best fashion. Make sure you've had enough time in your development. As we've outlined here, some of the regulatory on this, you have to build the samples to be submitted to regulatory, and that could be anywhere from 4 to 16-week process just to build those, and then to have the regulatory done at minimal on the lithium is a 4-week process. So there's a couple months in there that people don't typically anticipate. So part of this presentation is to get everybody aware of what goes on behind the scenes and how soon you can get your product to market. And then sharing the costs and constraints early in the process. We talked earlier about engineers like to see everything on there, the top-of-the-line performance electronics, but when all is said and done, the economics need to fit the project to be able to market it. And so that's very important to understand in the beginning. We can design in the U.S. and build in Asia. We work with several factories in Asia that we've transferred the upfront designs to them to build higher volume production on it, and very successful in that. And we have those capabilities to keep the economics down. Here's some other products that EPIC supports. Ed, did you want to discuss anything on this?
Absolutely. Why don't you take a look at the questions that are coming over and pick one, and I'll take a minute here and talk about some of the other products. As Anton mentioned, we have dedicated engineering resources for all of these products, whether it is the battery packs that you see there, custom cable assemblies, high reliability user interfaces for the medical and military area, and then the energy efficient fans and motors. And the thing to take away here from this is, again, we want to be a outreach of our customers' engineering department. So we hope that what these webinars demonstrate is we want to get as much technical information in the hands of our customers as possible, and we'll continue to provide these. I think the next one is coming up on cable assemblies in a few weeks. So having said that, I'll turn it back over to Anton. You can finish up and answer a couple of questions.
Okay. Yeah. Here's one here. How do you select the type of cell you use in the battery pack? Well, we selected on a couple different considerations. Sometimes customers have the specific brand and model considered for their design, and we are approved assemblers for some of the high-end Panasonic, A123, Sanyo. So we are capable of assembling with the Tier 1 manufacturers. But it's also on the power requirements and dimensional spacing available, sometimes a combination of those. And so those are all discussion points right from the onstart of the project. And, you know, some of it has to do with pricing. So a lot of the chemistries that are the high-end name brands are much more expensive than an Asia comparable solution. And so those are all discussed up front. Let's see. Here's a question. Does every lithium battery need to be UN 38.3 certified? Well, the answer to that is yes. Regardless of the size of the battery, all need to be UN DOT certified for air transportation. That's even at the cell level. And so that is something that is mandatory, and the restrictions are getting actually tighter every year on that. Let's see. Here's a good one. How do you get through the prototype approval shipping before the UN 38.3 certification? That's a good question because there is a specific request that we place with the state for prototypes to be able to manage them Class 9, but they have to be ground transportation. So prototypes are all managed ground transportation until the UN 38.3 certification can be in place. And as we identified, that's quite a process. Once you get your design buttoned down, you have to build the next lot for the approval, and then submit for the process of certification, which could be a couple months. And that's all the questions I've seen so far. We want to thank everybody for taking the time on this presentation. And this webinar, as well as all the previous ones we've done, are on our website. If other questions come in and I can't get to them today, I'll definitely get back to you via email, as I mentioned earlier. And I hope this was informative, and we're here to support. So we'll continue to answer any questions. Go forward.